Hello, my name is Daniel Yuck. Thank you for watching today. I appreciate you, your time, and your support. In today's video, I want to share with you how I go about thinning out thicker tattooing inks. This can be for black or color or any ink that you're using that may be too thick for your liking. By the end of this video, you will be well acquainted with knowing how to thin out thicker tattoo ink. However, should you have any questions at all, I encourage you to drop a comment down below. I will do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring that bell for me, as I'm going to be bringing more videos like this for you all. I do also have social medias under the same name as my YouTube channel. I have Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok, all under Daniel Yuck. I would appreciate the support over there as well. With that being said, let's get right on into this. When it comes to the process of actually thinning out thicker tattooing ink, the process itself is pretty straightforward. However, there are some tools that we are going to be needing. I will be leaving my Amazon affiliate and other affiliate links for you in the description below to the gear that is featured in this video, so you can check it out on your end. Are you wanting to develop your tattooing skill sets? Now you can practice and develop anytime, any place with an assortment of tattooing workbooks that I've created. With these assorted tattooing workbooks, we can practice our basic lining all the way to advanced lining. We can practice shading, shading placement, dot work, textures, and more. All we are going to need is a tattoo workbook of mine. We can use a pencil, pen. We can even use a tattoo machine with a ballpoint cartridge to develop our tattooing abilities further. That means that we don't need tattoo ink, we don't need napkins or petroleum jelly to get to practicing. Simply open one of my tattooing workbooks and get going. It really is that easy. You can get your hands on one of my developmental tattooing assorted workbooks by simply clicking the links in my description or in the pinned comment section below, or navigating on over to Amazon.com, typing in Daniel Yuck, and you'll see all of the assorted tattoo workbooks that I've created come up. If you have an Amazon account, be sure to follow my Amazon author page as well, as I would greatly appreciate your support. Should you have any questions at all, drop them in the comment section down below. I will do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. With that being said, let's get right back into this video. What we are going to be needing is some ink caps. Here I have a mixing solution. This is actually Witch Hazel. You can use dynamic 00 mixing solution if you want. You can use any mixing solution that you're already using, or you can use simple Witch Hazel. That's what I'm going to be using for this demonstration. What else we are going to need are these little stirrers right here, and we're going to need an ink mixer. What we are going to be needing to thin out thicker tattooing inks is a solution of some sort. So for this demonstration, I have Witch Hazel right here. I feel Witch Hazel would work just fine. You can use, for example, dynamic black 00 mixing solution if you want, or if you're already using a mixing solution of your choice, you can use that as well. Witch Hazel does work just fine. Now, also we're going to need some ink caps. Right here I have a stir sticks, and right here I have an ink mixer. Now, these are the tools that I'm going to be using, and you can see I have a small assortment of different inks. Right here I have Intenze Silver. Right here I have Intenze Titanium Silver. This is Radiant Brown. And right here we have Radiant Lemon Yellow. And right here we have Mummy Golden Yellow. So these are colored inks right here. Typically when we experience thicker tattooing inks, it's gonna be with colored tattooing inks. However, let's say if we're using, for example, Intenze Super Black, that can be a really thick black ink as well. So I just kind of want to point that out though. Typically thicker inks are more common with colored ink. For example, here I have dynamic black tattooing ink, and this one is already nice and fluid as well. So if I were to add a solution to it, I'd be making a gray wash at that point. The application is different from making a gray wash versus thinning out tattooing ink. The reason why we would make a gray wash is so that way we have different tones of a black from light to dark. The reason why we would thin out thicker tattooing inks is to make it easier to work with, essentially. So right here I have my ink cap, my stir stick, I have Intenze Silver, and the Witch Hazel right here. Now Intenze, from my experience, is a thicker ink. Whenever I pour out Intenze, it would be dry within the hour, making it a bit more difficult to work with. And if we're just starting out, it can maybe even pressure us to kind of speed up our workflow just to compensate for the quick drying of this silver Intenze ink. Let me show you how I'm gonna go about thinning out my tattooing ink. The actual process, again, as I mentioned, is gonna be pretty straightforward and probably will vary from person to person. How I go about thinning out thicker tattooing ink is when I'm pouring my ink out, the first thing that I'm gonna wanna do is put 1 to 3 drops of witch hazel or whatever solution we are using at the bottom of the cap. So I'm gonna drop in a couple of drops here. Now, depending on how thick the ink is normally is going to determine how many drops I use. Since Intenze Silver is on the thicker side, what I'm going to do is put in 3 drops there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the Intenze Silver right into the ink cap, and then from there I can mix it around, and if I need, I can add more witch hazel drops accordingly to make it the consistency that I'm looking for. And that is essentially the process in a nutshell. So allow me to place this in there. And it is a little bit more liquid there. Okay, so I'm going to leave a little bit of room at the top. And then what I'm going to do before I put any more witch hazel drops, I'm going to get my stir stick and my mixer. I'm going to place it in there like so. And then just mix it around. You don't want to hit the bottom of the ink cap as I just did. Try to stay away from doing that. Now, once I've determined the consistency, I can go ahead and proceed. I made a mess there, but it's okay. So what I'm going to do here is, if I want this to last for my session, I'm going to make it a little bit more thinner. And to do that, I'm just going to add a couple of more drops and mix them in there. I could add a couple to a few. It's really going to be to each their own. I added 6 drops of witch hazel so far to thin out this thicker tattooing ink. Now you can see the consistency is a lot more runny now. This is a lot more workable, and the dry time that it's going to take for this ink to dry is now extended simply because I added a solution such as witch hazel. That right there was the Intenze Silver. I'm going to drop titanium silver with no drops at the bottom, and I kind of want to see if I can demonstrate thicker ink. And you can see out the bottle, this looks thicker. There is a lot more thickness going on within this specific tattooing ink right here than that one right there. And that is essentially the difference between thinner and thicker ink. You can see the consistency as well when you're pouring it out. Let's say if I were to leave this here for my session, it's going to dry very quickly because, again, thicker ink tends to dry very, very fast. If I want to extend that dry time process, I'm going to add a few drops of witch hazel to the top. And again, you may have wanted to add it to the bottom as well, especially if you know the ink is thicker. I didn't do it for this one because I wanted to demonstrate what thicker ink looks like. From here, you want to get your stir stick and your ink mixer. Place it in there, make sure that you don't hit the bottom, and then you're going to want to mix it around here. And we really want to mix the witch hazel in there, and you really want to mix this pigment as best as we can. Now you can see it has loosened up and thinned out just a little bit. So the idea would be, if we need it thinner, then we're simply going to add a few more drops of witch hazel, which I'll do here for this demonstration. So that's 4 drops right there. And you can kind of see the process by now. It's actually pretty straightforward, and you just really have to pay attention to consistency that you're looking for. Really put special care into setting up our inks here. Now I guess the overfill is probably a good sign, letting me know that the ink is thinning out a little bit more, making it more fluid-like. So you can see even this drop tends to look like it's going to drop down a little bit more, because if you notice, if I place it in there, it's thick enough where it holds its integrity up here and it doesn't drop. If I were to add a few more drops and I make it the consistency where it drops off this end right here, as you see it doing right here. You saw how it dropped off right there, but I kind of had to force it off. If I add a few more drops, and we're going to get more of a fluid consistency. Allow me to demonstrate that one last time here. So I'm just going to place a couple of drops in here, maybe a few. And then I'm gonna mix it back in. I really wanna make sure that I work the witch hazel into the ink. And you can see, now we have a nice consistency. This is a very thin consistency that I'd be a lot more opposed to work with as opposed to a thicker consistency. Not only that, whenever I worked with thicker inks, it was always more difficult to manage the process along the way. So not only was I worrying about the ink drying out, I was also worrying about my technical application because thicker ink is just a little bit more difficult for me to work with. So if you are needing to thin out your ink, this is one way that you can go about doing so. Let's do this again here. So right here I have Radiant Brown, and this is a thicker ink, I would say. The same process is going to be for any brand, any color that we use. I want to drop a couple of drops at the bottom, and again, depending on how thick the ink already is going to determine how many drops I use. But for now, I'm going to put 2 and kind of work my way up from there. And then next, I'm going to drop in some of this Radiant Brown. And you can see off the bat that it does have a thicker consistency to it. So what that means is I'm going to use a little bit more witch hazel to thin it out more, so that way I can get an easier consistency to work with. And then from here, I'm going to get my ink mixer, and then we're going to repeat the process that we've been doing. Very nice. You can see the consistency there is more fluid and liquid-like as opposed to thicker. Now, if I wanted it to be thinner, at this point, I'm pretty sure you know what we're gonna do. We're gonna add some more solution here. I'm gonna add it all the way to the top as you see me doing there. We may get it overfill when mixing, but that's okay. I'm gonna do this slowly to make sure that I work the witch hazel into the pigment here. That right there is a better consistency than the thicker consistency that we started with. If I were to go and do a comparison here, I'm just gonna put just the brown straight in like so you can see. And we're gonna notice that there's not gonna be this sort of fluid consistency. So you're gonna see right here how we have that consistency. You can see that there. We don't have that over here. We can visibly see the consistency through this technique right here. You can see this one's tremendously thicker than this one over here. Right here is a really thick Intenze Grandpa Gray color, and you're gonna see that the consistency is super thick right here, but it's very thick as you can see. We're gonna turn this into a more workable consistency for me the exact same way here. I'm gonna go ahead and place that in there. I didn't put any at the bottom because again, I want to demonstrate how thick this ink is. What I'm gonna do is just place them down on top like so, and then I'm really gonna mix the witch hazel into the ink with my mixer here. I always prefer to overmix as opposed to undermix. It's really easy to undermix, but overmixing is, I feel, not really a thing. You always want to overmix. Make sure that everything is mixed in nice and consistently as you can possibly get it. So there we go. You can see, again, this texture or this consistency visibly changing here, and that's what we want. That right there is the process. It is very straightforward. It's really about paying attention to how many drops we're using and knowing which inks are thicker over other inks. That is the process right there. It's very straightforward once we start understanding what to look for. Let's do a quick consistency test before we conclude this video. So I'm gonna place just some Grandpa Gray from Intenze in here. I'm not going to do any diluting or anything like that. And what I wanna do is I'm going to tap the table, and I wanna show you the different consistencies using this method right here. So if I tap the table, you're gonna notice that the thinner inks move a lot more than the thicker inks. So these two right here are thicker in consistency than the rest of the inks that are there. And you can see that by a simple table hit. Even if I hit the table, this one right here from Radiant is really thick. I feel that the Radiant Brown is thicker than the Grandpa Gray right here. The Grandpa Gray does move a little bit. However, when I tap the table, there's no move within this specific consistency right here. So that lets me know that these two tattooing inks right here are very thick in comparison to the rest. So you can see the consistencies there after we thinned out all of these thicker inks. And then one more time, this one is very thick and this one is thick as well. That right there is how I go about thinning out different tattooing inks. Again, this method can apply to any color, any brand, whether it's colored or black, dynamic or radiant, it doesn't matter. This same approach will be applied to any ink we decide to use. If it's too thick, this is one way that you can go about thinning out your inks to get them to the correct consistency that you're looking for. That will be it for this one. Should you have any questions at all, I'm going to encourage you to drop a comment down below. Rest assured, I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring that bell for me, as I'm going to be bringing more videos like this for you all. I do also have social medias under the same name as my YouTube channel. I have Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok, all under Daniel Yuck. I would appreciate the support over there as well. With that being said, I thank you for your time and I appreciate you watching. You have a great day. Are you needing or wanting tattoo guidance? What about 4K high quality step-by-step follow-along tattoo sessions? Or maybe one-on-one tattoo support to get answers to your questions that are specifically tailored to your wants and needs as the artist? You can now become a Patreon where you will gain access to high quality 4K exclusive step-by-step follow-along tattoo sessions. I will be tattooing with you in a one-on-one step-by-step manner where I will be explaining what I am doing and why every step of the way. I will also be doing this in a high quality 4K format for your optimal viewing experience. On top of the one-on-one support and on top of the step-by-step tattoo session guidance, you will also gain access to exclusive tattoo stencils that you can download and place on your end to further develop your skill sets. I will leave a link for you in the description or in the pinned comment section below, or you can head on over to patreon.com/Daniel Yuck. When you become a Patreon, you will be getting one-on-one support where you can ask me as many questions as you'd like that are specifically tailored to your wants and needs as the artist. You will gain access to exclusive tattoo stencils that you can download and practice on your end. You'll also gain access to exclusive high quality 4K footage where I walk you through each and every tattoo session in a one-on-one step-by-step manner where I explain all the what's and why's along the way. Become a Patreon today. Thank you for your support in advance. I greatly appreciate you.